City, I have a red alert base Chapter 1, Red Police Base Vehicle. Suakyo on the east coast of Hyesu, also known as the Legacy Zone, is one of the most chaotic areas in the world and one of the poorest areas in the world because of the corruption and incompetence of the country, the division of warlords, and the abundance of pirates. At this time, in a small town called Gator in the interior of Somalia, Wang Yao was driving an off-road vehicle frantically to a fertilizer factory on the edge of the town. Damn! If I knew they were going to fight, I wouldn't come to this hell even if I gave 1,000,000 people. The wheels of the off-road vehicle were turning quickly, and Wang Yao in the car was in a panic. In the small town behind him, there were even several gunshots. Wang Yao was originally just a small sales clerk of a fertilizer company. Because the company has expanded its business in Hyesu in recent years, it needs to send some people from the headquarters to the Hyesu branch to stay permanently. Wang Yao signed a contract with the company because of lack of money. A 2-year agreement, only 2 years before returning home. Everything went well at first, but within a few months, a gold mine was suddenly discovered in a large mountain on the northern outskirts of the small town of Gator. At this moment, several warlord forces in the surrounding area have all moved, trying to occupy this gold mine. At first, they just sent troops into the small town of Gator. Later, the soldiers on both sides clashed and several people died. Then, the two sides mobilized a large number of troops outside the city of Gator and began a confrontation. War is imminent. Squeak! The off-road vehicle stopped steadily at the door of the fertilizer factory. Wang Yao jumped out of the car and ran to the door quickly. But there was no convoy, only some black employees were packing their bags. What's going on? The retreating convoy. Wang Yao couldn't help roaring as he looked at the empty factory. Wang Yao, you're back. A black security guard came out of the security booth when he heard the roar, looked at Wang Yao and said, 10 minutes ago, Director Li took all the Chinese and evacuated, you didn't follow. Li Wenquan. My RNM immortal. Wang Yao cursed. Li Wenquan is the director and general manager of this fertilizer factory. He usually doesn't get along with Wang Yao, but he didn't expect that when Wang Yao went to the city to transfer the factory's last funds to the bank, Li Wenquan left him and ran away. Full of anger, Wang Yao hurried back to the off-road vehicle, ready to chase the convoy. It turned out that the fuel level of the off-road vehicle had bottomed out. Fuck. Wang Yao felt a deep sense of powerlessness, picked up the phone, but found that there was no signal. It seems that the warlords occupied the communication base station in Gator, or the two sides are competing for the communication base station, resulting in no mobile phone communication now, only radio and satellite phones can communicate. Wang Yao got off the off-road vehicle and walked back to the fertilizer factory, but saw that the black workers had already started to run away. Even the security guard who greeted Wang Yao just now handed over a series of keys to Wang Yao, but also ran away. Not long after, only Wang Yao and his off-road vehicle were left. Looking at the huge fertilizer factory, Wang Yao could only think of a way to protect himself first. I heard that those warlords are all tribal armed forces and have hatred for hundreds of years. They kill people without blinking their eyes. Once they fight, they will slaughter the city and wipe out the family. Wang Yao only hopes to contact the rescue as soon as possible. Activation of red alert system. Just when Wang Yao was worried, a cold mechanical voice appeared in his mind. What is it? Wang Yao looked left and right, but didn't find anything emitting a sound. Related information about red alert will be deleted from this world. The system is loaded and ready to serve you. Your Excellency, Commander. The cold mechanical sound rang again, and Wang Yao was sure it was in his mind. He tried to communicate with it. Soon there was a virtual screen that only he could see. The above is the red alert game operating system that he is familiar with. Fuck. This. Wang Yao couldn't help but exclaimed in surprise, his eyes fixed on the red police base car that had not yet unfolded inside. How do I get this thing out? Wang Yao asked. Your Excellency Commander only needs to determine the location. The system replied. Then here. Is this fertilizer factory okay? Wang Yao looked at the open space in the fertilizer factory, and it was no problem to load a few large transport trucks. As Wang Yao's voice fell, a red police base car with a metallic sheen appeared in the open space of the factory. Fuck. F***CK. F***CK. Nahi Wang Yao is illiterate, and he goes all over the world with one word. But the red police car is too big, and it has filled up the space. Wang Yao is worrying about how to deploy the red police base car. At this time, the system said Your Excellency Commander can activate the camouflage system to disguise the red alert base as a fertilizer factory. What about the original fertilizer factory? Wang Yao asked. Recovery, as the funds for the red alert system. The system responded. At this time, Wang Yao discovered that, just like in the game, there is a fund column on the operation interface, and currently there is only 10,000 funds. In addition to building mining farms to collect ores, the way to obtain funds can also be obtained through recycling, such as red alert units. So Wang Yao immediately ordered the red police base car to deploy, and by the way, the fertilizer plant was recycled. Now there is only Wang Yao around the entire fertilizer factory, and the ownership of the fertilizer factory has been tacitly occupied by Wang Yao, so the system quickly recovered the fertilizer factory, adding 200,000 yuan of funds. Remember that it seemed that 5 million was invested in the construction of this fertilizer plant, so the recovery price ratio is. Before Wang Yao finished speaking, the system prompted Your Excellency Commander, the recovery is not based on investment or construction funds, but converted according to the actual material. That's it? Wang Yao nodded. With 200,000 funds plus the initial 10,000 funds, he didn't know how much he could buy. The red police base car was quickly deployed and completed, and after a halo, it transformed into a fertilizer factory, which made Wang Yao call it amazing. Then, Wang Yao clicked on the building page on the operating platform. Anyone who has played the Red Police game knows that after the Red Police base car is deployed, 3 major buildings must be built immediately. They are the power plant, which maintains the energy supply of the base, the ore refinery, which guarantees the supply of funds, and the other is the barracks. However, the situation is very critical now. In order to have the ability to protect themselves immediately, under the arrangement of Wang Yao, the power plant was built first, then the barracks was built second, and the ore refinery was built last. While Wang Yao was waiting anxiously, an allied power plant rose from the ground, and a huge electric arc surrounded the power plant. Immediately afterwards, the barracks also rose from the ground. The moment the barracks was built, Wang Yao clicked on the barracks recruitment system. A little different from the game is that the arms in the barracks have changed a bit. In addition to the mobilization soldiers and the Eagle Country soldiers in the second generation, there is also an infantry soldier that can be customized and edited, perhaps to be more suitable for this world. Red Police Infantry description: elite infantry with 3 years of service experience, everyone is an excellent soldier. Price, 200 capital. Wang Yao waved his hand. Buy. Chapter 2, Grizzly Tank. Originally, Wang Yao thought that the price would increase, but he didn't expect it to be the same price as in the game, and there was a custom function. For example, the skin color, race, and equipment of soldiers can be customized. At the beginning, the system will default according to the commander's situation. So Wang Yao made some changes and set the soldier race to 3 random, so that it looked more like an international mercenary. There is also the equipment on the soldiers. Wang Yao adopts the equipment of Ying Jiang's family. Each soldier is equipped with an M4A1 assault rifle, a LOT bulletproof vest, tactical helmet, combat uniform, tactical mirror, optical equipment, carrying equipment, and other basic equipment. If you replace it with normal purchases, you can't get down without tens of thousands of dollars. However, in the system, these are the basic supporting equipment for soldiers. A good soldier for 200 UN. Recruit. As the recruitment CD ended, a heavily armed Red Police infantryman came out of the barracks and trotted to Wang Yao. Soldier No. 001 reports to you. Your Excellency, Commander. The Red Police infantryman stood at attention and saluted. Wang Yao looked at the soldier and found that his equipment was well stocked, and the all-American equipment made it look like a mercenary supported by the Eagle country. After all, Wang Yao didn't want to cause trouble for his hometown. With such a soldier, Wang Yao's sense of security suddenly increased. He nodded and said, "You are responsible for my security first." "Yes. Your Excellency, Commander." So the soldiers began to follow Wang Yao. When night fell, Wang Yao's base already had a power plant, a barracks, an ore refinery, a chariot factory, and 4 bunkers. The number of soldiers recruited also exceeded 100. Wang Yao plans to take these soldiers into infantry squads and form 8 infantry squads and 1 air defense squad. Although there are army preset templates in the system, Wang Yao's troops are still too few at present. The military preset template of the system is based on the Eagle Sauce Army as a reference. 3 soldiers form a combat team, and 3 combat teams plus a fire team form a 12-man infantry squad, equipped with 10 rifles, 1 M249 light machine gun, and 1 M249 light machine gun. M24 sniper rifle, 1 grenade launcher. 3 infantry squads plus a weapons squad form an infantry platoon. The weapons squad consists of 2 fire teams and 1 ammunition team, one of which is armed with M240 general purpose machine guns or M2 Browning heavy machine guns, and the other is armed with 2 Javelin anti-tank missiles launcher. The force is 42. 3 infantry platoons and 1 fire platoon form an infantry company, in which the fire platoon has a mortar squad, a heavy machine gun squad, and an anti-tank squad, armed with 2 60mm mortars and 6 general-purpose machine guns or Browning heavy machine guns, 2 Javelin anti-tank launchers and 2 83mm rocket launchers, plus the company command system. A company has a scale of 160 people. The higher battalion level and regiment level are basically multifunctional synthetic troops, which can deal with various situations and have a very wide range of operations. With Wang Yao's current strength, it is far from enough to form a synthetic army, so it is mainly based on infantry squads. 2 of the infantry squads are responsible for the guarding of the main entrance and take turns on duty. 2 infantry squads are responsible for patrolling around the base. 1 infantry squad serves as Wang Yao's bodyguard, and the other 3 infantry squads are ready as reserves at the barracks. Fighting. There are also several soldiers who formed an air defense squad, equipped with 2 anti-aircraft missiles, responsible for the airspace security of the base to avoid being raided by enemy planes. As the order was issued, the Red Police infantry took action one after another, and the snipers occupied the favorable terrain. The original fence of the fertilizer factory was replaced by a fence produced by the Red Police, and connected to high-voltage electricity, and light and dark whistle and machine gun fortresses were arranged on the periphery. The main entrance of the fertilizer plant is connected to a highway, and Wang Yao had soldiers deploy barricades, traps and bunkers at the intersection. With the passage of time, the sound of gunfire in the mountains north of Gator became more and more. It seemed that the warlords started a war, but Wang Yao knew nothing about the local warlords. To recruit spies, in addition to the barracks, it is necessary to build a combat laboratory. When night fell, Wang Yao's tank factory finally produced the first tank. Allied Grizzly tank. The Grizzly tank is equipped with a 105mm rifled gun, weighs 20 tons, has a maximum road speed of 70 km per hour and a maximum range of 483 km. The prototype of the Grizzly tank is the M8 light tank, which is a light tank between the second-generation main battle tank and the third-generation main battle tank. Its fire control system has reached the level of the M1 main battle tank, but the armor protection and weight have not reached the minimum standard of 35 tons of the third-generation main battle tank. Even so, its guns are strong enough to penetrate the armor of the third-generation main battle tank T-72, and because of its light weight, it is one of the few tanks that can be directly transported. And after being airdropped, it only takes 15 minutes to enter the battle. Coupled with its outstanding mobility compared to the third-generation main battle tank, it has a great advantage in strategic deployment. And these advantages have been inherited by the Grizzly tank. The more advanced Mirage tanks, Prism tanks, Apocalypse tanks, and third-generation main battle tanks could not be unlocked before the Combat Lab, so Wang Yao ordered the tank factory to produce 3 Grizzly tanks as armored forces. Just as Wang Yao was looking at his newly manufactured Grizzly tank and sighing at his metallic luster, a soldier trotted over to report, "Report, Commander, a group of civilians poured out of the city of Gator. They seem to be fleeing, and the direction of travel is where we are." Civilians gushing out of the city. Wang Yao looked at the red police officer Xue Baikan beside him. Xue Baikan, who has a face with a national character, is a grassroots officer automatically generated by the red police system for every 100 soldiers produced. Although he is not as good as a hero unit, he is also an elite officer who graduated from the Orthodox Military Academy, and has the talent to become a senior officer. It should be a refugee. Xue Baikan analyzed, the tribes and warlords in the Black State have a history of hatred against each other for hundreds of years, and the massacre of each other's civilians occurs from time to time even in modern times. The warlord will not let a city like Gator with a population of 10,000 be ignored. Wang Yao looked at the map on the table. The fertilizer factory where the base is located on the east side of Gator. A highway passes through a few hundred meters from the main entrance of the fertilizer factory. It is one of the rare cement roads in the country. Let those refugees walk along the road and don't let them enter our security zone. Wang Yao didn't want to take in these refugees, because the red police base here is his biggest trump card, and it is impossible for any outsiders to see it. And he is not a good person. What if there are warlords or spies from Western countries in this group of refugees? So here is absolutely not let outsiders know. Wang Yao looked at Gator on the map, thinking about whether to take the initiative and bring the city into the sphere of influence as an outpost against the warlords. Chapter 3, Massacre. Rhodes is the deputy mayor of Gator and a minor figure in the official faction of the pro-Suchao state. After Gator broke the news of the existence of gold mines in the northern mountains, Rhodes asked the town mayor to apply to the official Somalia for troops to be stationed in order to protect Gator's gold mines from other warlords. However, the town mayor Yasuno has actually fallen to one of the warlords secretly, reporting the news of the Gator gold mine to Erickson, the great warlord in the northern province of Kuban, and asking Erickson for troops to be stationed. But Gator is located between Kuban province and Gar province. The warlord Sag in Gar province dispatched an army as soon as he got the news of the Gator gold mine. Now Gator is between 2 warlord troops, and it is not known how many forces are fighting secretly. Some civilians fled. Their target was Port Bell, a coastal port city 200 kilometers to the east. However, not long after the fleeing team left Gator City, they encountered an army. Mr. Rhodes. There is an army at the intersection. Several wealthy people who fled, or the middle class in Gator, immediately reported to Rhodes after discovering the army at the intersection and asked him what to do. Rhodes got out of a car and stepped forward boldly. The wife beside him nervously pulled Rhodes' suit, and after being gently appeased by Rhodes, he let go. Rhodes walked in front of the refugees, and only saw the situation through the other party's searchlight. He remembered that this intersection was the road leading to a foreign-funded fertilizer factory. The country called Datang had assisted many projects in the Black States. Among them, the fertilizer factory, which had invested millions of dollars, was a rare chemical industry in Gator, so at that time Rhodes is also very concerned. However, he remembered that the group of Chinese should have evacuated yesterday, right? Why is there another army here? Rhodes could see at a glance that the other party was well equipped, not comparable to the ordinary army of Suecuo, and even the official special forces of Suecuo were not well equipped. On the simple fortifications built with sandbags, machine guns were erected, and simple barricades made of wood blocked the intersection, but the opponent was armed to the teeth, and Rhodes could not see the color of the opponent's skin. "Who are you?" Rhodes stepped forward and asked. PS1, for some reason, the world is set to use the same common language. "We are the Red Police Corps, and the front is our army station, please detour." A Red police officer came to Rhodes and said to them. "Red Police Corps." Rhodes frowned and looked at the number of the other party. There were at least one squad of soldiers, and they didn't know how many troops there were in their so-called garrison, but Rhodes had never heard of this in Suecuo officials. "Prepared by. Are you warlords?" Rhodes asked cautiously. "No comment," the Red police officer replied. Boom. Boom. At this moment, Gator City suddenly made two huge explosions, which alarmed the people here. "You go and report the situation to the commander." The Red police officer ordered a Red police soldier looking at the huge sparks rising after the explosion of Gator City and the fire that began to spread. After the Red police soldier trotted away into the base, the Red police officer continued to say to Rhodes, "Let's leave quickly." Rhodes was surprised by the shelling of Gator. Seeing that the unknown forces here did not detain them, he quickly commanded the refugee team and let them continue to evacuate to the east along the road. Rhodes, who is in his 40s this year, has experienced the civil war in Somalia. He knows that once the war breaks out, the red-eyed warlords, and even the official army of the Sauk country, will kill them when they encounter some hostile tribes. Just as Rhodes was directing the evacuation of thousands of refugees, gunshots were heard in Gator City, and as time passed, the gunshots became more and more frequent. Not long after, another group of refugees ran out of the city of Gator. Some of the refugees with cars ran the fastest. Seeing Rhodes directing the refugees to evacuate, they quickly stepped forward and cried, "Mayor Rhodes! General Hebel killed Mayor Arsenault. He even indulged the soldiers to burn in the city. Killing and looting, we have died many clansmen and escaped." Rhodes was shocked. Hebel was a subordinate of the warlord Sarge of Gar province, and he was the commander of the troops who attacked the Gator gold mine this time. "Hurry up and retreat to the east. Just enter Bell Harbor. Hurry up." Rhodes hurriedly told them to hurry up. These refugees with means of transportation ran very fast, but the more ordinary people in the rear were not so fast. Under the night, Gator has been designated as a city of fire. The city is full of killing, rape, and looting. Hebel's army has completely turned this small city into hell. On the highway, the fleeing people dragged their families and their families with their only remaining property. They dared not even turn on their flashlights, and fled in the dark. But soon, the warlord soldiers spotted civilians fleeing, reported them to their general, and Hebel immediately sent out a pursuit team. A team of more than 800 people drove out of the city of Gator, spearheaded by several armored vehicles and pickups equipped with machine guns, and carried out inhumane killings of the fleeing civilians along the road. The searchlights on armored vehicles and pickups turned on, illuminating the road, and then bullets poured down, and civilians who didn't have time to flee fell like reaped wheat. Rhodes saw the lights appearing on the road behind, as well as the sound of gunfire and screams, and knew that the warlord had sent a pursuit force to slaughter them. However, including Rhodes, this group of refugees only had some self-defense firearms at most, and could not fight against the warlord troops at all. At a critical moment, Rhodes saw the Red police soldiers who had returned to the back of the bunker and were waiting in battle, and immediately came to the intersection with courage. After the gun was aimed at him, Rhodes fell to his knees and pleaded, "Please. Whoever you are. Please save these civilians." The Red police soldiers behind the bunker did not respond to Rhodes' request, and the black muzzle was still aimed at him. Rode knelt in the middle of the road, under the searchlight, repeating the words of this plea. Tears could not stop flowing. If there was no help, the thousands of civilians who escaped had no idea how much they would survive. At this time, in the Red Police base, Wang Yao also saw the tragic state of Gator and Rhodes kneeling on the ground through the pictures taken by the soldiers in front. He knew this guy. He had dealt with many officials and rich people in Gator City in the past year in Suakuo. Rhodes was the only Gator official who was willing to do practical things for the local people in his eyes. As for the other officials, they don't do anything at all, so it's no wonder that people in this place have uprisings from time to time, and the local officials are harassed. Your Excellency Commander. The chaotic army that came out of Gator will enter our warning area in at most an hour, said Xue Baikan, who served as a staff officer. Then, he added, and our funds are also in a very tight stage, and we need a mine to replenish. Wang Yao saw that his start-up capital of 210,000 was less than 100,000, and he also understood that he had to find a mine to provide the source of funds. It seems that the gold mine of Gator must be one. Now whether it is for self-protection or the development requirements of the Red Police base, Wang Yao will face Gator's warlord troops. Order, leave an infantry squad to protect the base, and the other troops will attack. First wipe out this chaotic army for me. Wang Yao's hand pointed to the red-named army marked on the map. Follow your will. Your Excellency Commander. Xue Baikan stood at attention and saluted. Chapter 4, Red Police Attack. Originally, Wang Yao was just an ordinary person. He wanted to protect himself in this war. He took a convoy back to China to evacuate at the port. When he returned to China, he would never go to the chaotic area again, and be an ordinary person safely. Now, however, with the Red Police base as a source of support, the ambitions of an ordinary person like Wang Yao have also begun to expand. Following Wang Yao's order, the Red Police soldiers in the base were mobilized. In the middle of the night, Wang Yao's barracks and chariot factory produced many more soldiers and chariots. Now he has more than 200 troops in his hands. The main force is organized into an infantry company, and another armored platoon is organized, equipped with 3 Grizzly tanks, and the remaining troops are organized into a guard squad to stay at the base and an air defense squad. At the same time as the troops were assembled, the Red Police officers, mainly Xue Baikan, also began to formulate combat plans. According to the existing information, the main force of the enemy was massacred in the city of Gator, and there were about 500 to 800 enemy troops out of the city, and they were massacring the fleeing civilians along the road. According to the sound of gunfire, this enemy army has about 5 light armored vehicles and about 10 pickup trucks. These 5 light armored vehicles come from 4 different countries, from the BMP-1 infantry fighting vehicle to the BTR-40. There are armored vehicles, and the weapons of their infantry are even more varied. The familiar ones are the AK-47 and 56 types, as well as various light weapons of the Moxian family. In view of the fact that the enemy has not yet discovered the Red Police base, and the enemy is slaughtering civilians along the road in a very contemptuous state, Xue Baikan suggested to send 2 infantry platoons to flank the left and right sides of the road, and 1 infantry platoon followed the tank platoon to launch a frontal attack. Attack and make dumplings of this enemy army. Wang Yao agreed with Xue Baikan's plan. After the plan was finalized, another Red Police officer, Chen Suans, served as the commander of the former enemy of the unit, responsible for front-line command and led the unit to set off. On the other hand, Wang Yao and Xue Baikan were in the Red Police base, looking at the map around the base on the light screen, as well as the red dots on both sides, and began to observe the progress of the battle. At the same time, Wang Yao did not stop the construction of the base, and the combat laboratory, Air Force Command, and radar were also arranged on the production list. Outside the main entrance of the Red Police base, Rhodes, who was still kneeling on the ground and begging, suddenly heard a series of neat and orderly footsteps. He raised his head in surprise and saw that behind the barricade, a group of Red police soldiers trotted out of the fertilizer factory, led by their respective officers, towards the gentle slopes on both sides of the road. Just as he was shocked, the Red police soldiers removed the barricade, and 3 never-before-seen tanks slowly drove out of the fertilizer factory. Chen Suans, who was in charge of the frontline command, walked out of the soldiers and came to Rhodes. Rhodes saw the other party and knew that it should be the other party's officer, and quickly said, "General, I'm just a second lieutenant officer." Chen Xian interrupted Rhodes with a wave of his hand, and said, "Hurry up and retreat with your civilians, war is about to break out here." "Yes. Yes. Please stop them." Rhodes got up quickly and thanked him. Rhodes returned to the civilian group, and after letting his cronies take the civilians along the road to evacuate, he chose to stay. Chen Suans looked at his watch, guessing that the troops on both flanks had reached the edge of the enemy's cluster, and immediately said to the others, "The armored platoon is attacking frontally, and the first platoon of infantry is cooperating with the tanks. Target. Destroy the enemy." Yes. The Red police soldiers were imposing. Afterwards, the Grizzly tank started and moved in the direction of the enemy along the road, followed by more than 30 Red police infantrymen armed with firearms. Inside the Red police base, Wang Yao watched as the red dots representing soldiers from several parties approached the blue dots representing the enemy troops on the screen. He was nervous and excited when he was involved in the war for the first time. Although there is only one company with less than 200 troops, but they are all elite Red police soldiers, Wang Yao still has confidence in dealing with a group of rabble. In front, the civilians who were being slaughtered by the rebels fled to both sides of the road in a panic. The rebels on the pickup truck operated machine guns to shoot at the figures on the road at will, laughing from time to time, competing with their companions for who to kill the most. Under the desperate cover of her family, a civilian girl escaped the shooting field of the rioting army and marched in the dark crying bitterly. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the grass ahead. The girl staggered and fell forward in fright. Seeing that the girl was about to fall on the gravel, a figure suddenly appeared in front of her and supported her. The girl raised her head in horror, and what she saw was a tactical night vision goggle emitting a dim light under an earth-gray helmet looking at her like a ghost. "Let's go," the man whispered. The girl was so frightened that she nodded again and again, and ran to the back of the hillside in a panic. On the way she was running, the girl was surprised to find that there were soldiers dressed up by the man just now. They were in a group of 3, spread out widely, and alternately covered each other. Under the cover of the hillside and grass, they gradually approached. Up the road. The girl was stunned. She didn't choose to continue to escape, but hid behind a hillside, staring at the direction where gunfire and screams were still being heard on the road, and she was looking forward to something. The rebel army continued to slaughter while advancing along the road, and suddenly there was a roar in front. On the leading rebel armored vehicle, a rebel commander, or the leader, stuck his head out of the tank and looked forward. But due to the lack of night vision equipment, they simply couldn't see what was in the darkness ahead. 800 meters. Fire! Inside the Grizzly tank, the commander, with the help of night vision goggles, saw the other party's armored vehicle stop and ordered loudly. Boom! I saw a burst of fire suddenly burst out in the darkness, and the Grizzly tank, which fired only after reaching 800 meters in the darkness and terrain, penetrated the armor of the leading BMP-1 infantry fighting vehicle with one shot. The high explosive shell easily penetrated the 19mm armor plate on the front of the BMP-1 infantry fighting vehicle, and immediately caused a huge explosion after breaking into the armored vehicle, killing several soldiers in the armored vehicle. Before the chaotic army could react, the other 2 Grizzly tanks also fired artillery shells, instantly destroying the 2 enemy tanks. In the face of the sudden attack, the enemy army, who was still enjoying the fun of slaughter, was in chaos, and the commander shouted and fired. Shoot at the point of fire. Shhhhhh boom. 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 Several grenades pierced the night sky from both sides and broke into the enemy's formation. The huge explosion instantly caused dozens of casualties to the enemy. On the high ground on both sides of the road, the M240 general-purpose machine guns deployed by the Red Police infantry on both wings set up tripods and turned on the heavy machine gun mode. Together with the M2 Browning heavy machine guns, they formed a line of fire to block and shoot the battlefield. Immediately afterwards, the Red Police infantry began to charge, and from the left and right wings of the road, 3 combat units formed a group of 3, with the help of night vision goggles, shooting down the enemy one by one. The Grizzly tank was advancing, and the 105mm tank rifle mercilessly smashed the enemy's armored vehicles and armored pickups into a pile of scrap metal. The Red Police infantry followed closely behind, either crouching on the ground, lying on the ground, or looking for cover to shoot at the panicked enemy troops in front of them. Faced with an unknown enemy, the chaotic army was completely stunned, scrambling to flee in a panic. However, in the dark night, the enemy troops scattered like birds and beasts, even ran to the faces of the Red Police soldiers and were killed by a burst of fire. Some rebel leaders shouted and tried to regroup. Boom! However, these shouting rebel leaders were easily called by the Red Police snipers. The battle, from the very beginning, developed in a one-sided direction. Chapter 5, Night Raid Plan Report Commander. The battle is over. Our army is cleaning the battlefield. Inside the Red Police base, Shwebaikin looked at Wang Yao with a smile on his lips. In just half an hour, all 800 enemy troops were annihilated, and only a few enemies ran out of their encirclement net in the dark. The commander of this chaotic army was killed on the spot, 5 armored vehicles were destroyed, and 10 pickups were also destroyed. All 5 cars were blown up, and only 5 cars were left. The first time the Red Police force fought, they showed their amazing strength. With less than 200 troops, 800 enemies were wiped out, and only 3 of them were scratched by the shrapnel or shock waves of the RPG fired by the enemy in the panic, and no one was injured. Hearing the battle report and the damage to his side, Wang Yao suddenly exhaled a breath of turbid air, as if all the pressure in his body had been swept away, and his whole body became excited. Next, can Gator be shot down? Wang Yao looked at the staff officers headed by Shwebaikin. Regarding this point, the staff officers of the Red Police have already discussed it, and Shwebaikin said directly, "We have to interrogate the prisoners to find out how many troops the enemy has in the city, their equipment, etc., and then make plans. Also, our troops are too small. Gator is a city of 10,000 people after all. To control such a city, at least 500 soldiers are needed." Shwebaikin frowned and shook his head slightly. "Actually, I don't agree with direct Gators, but our funds." Wang Yao also understood, Gator is a city of 10,000 people after all, it is too big. With the only troops in his hand, if he is involved in street fighting, even the elite of the Red Police soldiers will fall into the quagmire. At this time, the Red Police Corps was caught in a dilemma. It needed funds and needed to develop outwards, so it had to win the gold mine, and to win the gold mine, it had to lay down the outpost of Gator. However, the number of enemy troops in the city of Gator is unknown, the equipment is unknown, and the strength of the Red Police Corps is limited, and it is easy to be passive in a forcible attack. Wang Yao looked at the map, pondered for a while, and suddenly said, "What if we don't seek to annihilate the enemy in Gator City, but drive out the enemies of Gator? Get out." Shwebaikin was taken aback by Wang Yao's idea. Wang Yao used to be an old player who is proficient in various RTS strategy games. Although he is definitely not as good as a serious soldier in some professional cognition, Wang Yao has established a set of his own ideas with more than 10 years of experience in RTS strategy games. I saw Wang Yao pointing to the city map of Gator and said, "If we attack, the enemy will think that they have encountered a military action by a mysterious force or even a major country, and they may stick to the city or withdraw from the city. But the odds of this are only 50-50. Shwebaikin and other staff members of the Red Police surrounded him and listened carefully to the commander's advice. But if there is another force attacking Gator from another direction at this time, it is likely to be surrounded. If you were the commander of the enemy in the city of Gator, what would you do? Wang Yao looked at Shwebaikin. The latter's face froze, his hands on the edge of the map table, and he said solemnly, in order not to be surrounded, then he must have a 90% chance of breaking through, and the remaining 10% chance of not breaking through, or there is a problem with his brain, either he has reinforcements outside the city. But, where did we get a support army? Shwebaikin looked at the gold mine further north on the map and said, another warlord army. Wang Yao smiled and said, no, isn't there a group of people outside who can use it? Shwebaikin was stunned for a moment, then reacted and said with a smile, Commander wants to use those fleeing civilians to disguise as a warlord army. Well, I don't ask them to attack, as long as they make a big enough noise to make the enemy in the city think they are surrounded. Wang Yao added, the equipment of the chaotic army that was captured is just right for the enemy. They use it. Staff. Rehearse the plan immediately. Shwebaikin felt that Wang Yao's plan had a great possibility of being implemented, so he immediately summoned the Red Police staff officers to conduct a detailed rehearsal and formulation of the plan, so as not to fall behind at every step. At the same time, the front troops also inquired about the enemy's situation from the mouth of a captured rebel leader. The one who attacked Gator was General Hebul, a subordinate of the warlord Sag in the Gar province. He had a division with more than 5,000 people. In addition to the 2 regiments stationed at the gold mine and the 1 group that came out to pursue, there were still about 3,000 people in the city. The rebels are killing civilians. In addition, I got information about another warlord army. The army of the great warlord Eriksson in the northern Kuban province is a little more than Hebul, with more than 6,000 people, but it was too late because of the distance. In one step, the gold mine was occupied by Hebul. As for the reason why Hebul massacred the small town of Gator, it was because the mayor Yasuno was from the warlord Eriksson of Kuban province. If Hebul wanted to defend the gold mine, he had to keep Gator in his hands. According to the little leader, Hebul put armored troops on the gold mine, and among the 3,000 people who entered Gator, only their regiment has armored vehicles, and the other regiments have at most a few pickup trucks and self-modified ones. Armored pickups, it seems that we have a high probability of expelling them. Shwebaikin brought the detailed plan of the battle to Wang Yao to see. Call Rhodes, if he doesn't want to, he has to wait until tomorrow to find a spy. Wang Yao looked at the war lab that was still circling in the construction list. If Rhodes is unwilling to cooperate, then to control these civilians, you need a oneself that the civilians are familiar with. Using a spy to pretend to be Rhodes is a good way. Unfortunately, the spy will be produced at least tomorrow and daylight. And now there is still most of the night. If a night attack can be organized and Hebul is caught off guard, the success rate will be higher. Chapter 6, Organizing the Militia. The civilians that Rhodes was still in command of fleeing were evacuated along the road to the east coast. At this time, a Red Police officer who had just talked with him came to Rhodes. Mr. Rhodes, right? Our commander wants to see you. The Red Police officer first gave a military salute and then said. Rhodes has also seen a lot of troops, including the official army of the country, the troops of local warlords, rebels, and guerrillas, and even foreign troops, but he has never seen an army like him. Salutes. He felt an equal respect. Your commander. After Rod came back to his senses, he just thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. Later, Rod arranged some things for his wife, children, and cronies, and let them continue to organize civilians to escape. He adjusted his suit and kept up with the Red Police officer. When he came to the guard post at the intersection, a red police soldier searched him to make sure he was not carrying any dangerous goods. Rhodes cooperated quietly. Then the two took an off-road vehicle and came to the fertilizer factory. As soon as the off-road vehicle drove into the fertilizer plant, Rhodes looked around curiously, and the red police soldier who was driving and the red police officer sitting next to him did not stop him, and he was obviously not worried that he was a spy. Rhodes found that the fertilizer factory was no different from when he came to inspect it before, except that there was a new barracks-like building in the open area, and the entire fertilizer factory was full of patrolling soldiers. They were in groups of 3 and a dog. They were fully armed and looked like elite soldiers. The off-road vehicle stopped in front of a tent, and Rhodes was invited in. There was only one table and 2 chairs inside, and the red police officer who brought him said, "Mr. Rhodes, please take a seat, wait a moment, the commander will be here in a moment. This is someone else's territory." Rhodes knew that he only had to wait obediently, so he sat quietly on the chair. After waiting for about 10 minutes, the soldier in charge of watching Rhodes outside the tent suddenly stood at attention and saluted. Rhodes knew that the Lord was coming. However, it was a familiar young man who entered. "You seem surprised." Wang Yao was very satisfied with Rhodes' expression. After walking in with Xue Baikan, he ordered someone to pull up the tent, and then sat opposite Rhodes. "Wang Yao." Rhodes' eyes under the wide glasses had a shocked look. He carefully looked at the young man in front of him, and then looked at the officer behind the young man. Obviously, this somewhat unfamiliar acquaintance is indeed the master. Rhodes immediately asked, "These soldiers are from the Tang dynasty?" After all, this fertilizer factory was invested by businessmen from Datang, and Wang Yao and the officers behind him were also Chinese, so Rhodes was a little suspicious. "No, they are just international mercenaries." Wang Yao casually said, "We do not belong to any country, and we are here only for world peace." World peace. Rhodes couldn't help laughing when he heard the word. In the more than 40 years of his life, he has rarely had peaceful years. As an official of a small country, he has seen through the essence of this world, which is nothing more than the jungle that is more cruel than the jungle of He Is Who. Even the beasts in the jungle can't kill themselves, and humans have always been the most ruthless group of cannibals. Whether you want to believe it or not, we are indeed here for this. Wang Yao looked at Rhodes and continued, "Do you want to save Gator?" "Gator?" Rhodes came back to his senses, looked at Wang Yao, and asked, "Are you going to attack Gator?" "Forget it, but urban street fighting is very troublesome." Wang Yao leaned back on the back of his chair and said slowly, "According to our information, there were only 3,000 chaotic troops entering Gator, all of them wandering without a few tanks and armored vehicles. We need a group of people on the outskirts of the city to create chaos, so that the chaotic army in the city thinks that someone is going to surround them, so as to force them out of the city." Rhodes quietly listened to Wang Yao's plan. After listening, Rhodes frowned and said, "Do you want me to organize civilians to be cannon fodder for you?" "It's not cannon fodder." Wang Yao waved his hand, "We're not going to use civilians to fill the front line, you just need to shoot a few shots in the suburbs to create the illusion of a crowd, and you don't have to enter the city to avoid chaos." "Army attack. How can I trust you?" Rhodes said solemnly after pondering for a while. "You don't need too many people, about 200 adults will do. I will give you a batch of captured firearms, and then send a team to assist you to make the movement of the army." Wang Yao looked directly at Rhodes. "Eyes, 200 people, thousands of civilians in the casino, would you like it?" "Deputy Mayor Rhodes." Rhodes exhaled, pursed his lips, and nodded slowly, "You successfully persuaded me. You will be grateful for your choice." Wang Yao got up and stretched out his hand with a smile. "I only hope that more civilians can be rescued." Rhodes shook hands with Wang Yao and accepted all Wang Yao's proposals. Next, Wang Yao let the barracks and the chariot factory continue to work overtime without stopping for a moment, and then sent 2 red police soldiers from the infantry squad to assist Rhodes to create an illusion. After Rhodes came out of the red police base, he quickly returned to the civilian population, and in the name of forming the Gator militia, he recruited 200 men. About half an hour later, Rhodes brought 200 men to the battlefield where the Red Police Corps ambushed the rebels and began to receive weapons. Most of the 800 enemy troops that were annihilated had weapons and equipment, and light weapons were also varied, ranging from AK-47 to 56 type submachine guns, from Uzi submachine guns to R-70 submachine guns, and most of the light weapons after World War II can even be found here. In addition to those sold to black states from various countries, some are made by local indigenous people using traditional craftsmanship. They may jam after a few rounds, and they have to be kicked on both feet before they can be used. In this way, he randomly selected 200 guns, and then gave them 5 pickups. Rhodes led the group of militiamen, led by the Red Police soldiers, and began to detour to the northern suburbs of Gator. Chapter 7, Turn the night raid into a war of annihilation in the Red Police base. Wang Yao looked at the icon on the light screen map representing the Green Friendly Army and began to detour to the north of Gator. He frowned and said, "It's a little hard to make a big noise with this small force. When the new batch of Grizzly tanks from the tank factory is completed, form an armored platoon to follow them." Wang Yao ordered, looking at the 6th Grizzly tank that was already in production. Yes. As time went by, Wang Yao's army continued to increase. In the second half of the night, the construction of the Air Force headquarters was completed, and Wang Yao immediately ordered a Nighthawk helicopter. The Nighthawk helicopter is an important air combat unit in Red Alert 2. This large transport helicopter can quickly and efficiently transport infantry troops on the battlefield regardless of terrain. The prototype of the Nighthawk helicopter is the CH-47 Chinook transport helicopter produced by Boeing, which has been in service for half a century and has a very large transport capacity. The cargo bay can carry 33 fully armed soldiers, or 2.5 tons of supplies, and the hooks under the belly can also carry 6 tons of cargo, and due to the low altitude, it is difficult for enemy radars to scan it. The Red Police base is more than 20 kilometers away from Gator. Whether Wang Yao is increasing or withdrawing troops, he can be transported by Nighthawk helicopters. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the Red Police soldiers sent out reported that Rhodes Gator Militia Regiment had reached the target position, and the 2nd Armored Platoon also joined them. Then, let's attack. Wang Yao looked at the ready troops on the map and said solemnly. The time has dragged on for half of the night. We can't wait for the enemy in the city to react. It's better to catch them off guard. At this time, Wang Yao already had 2 companies with 320 troops. Except for the 1 guard squad who stayed at the Red Police base and the troops who followed Rhodes to command the militia group to feint, there were 250 troops on the frontal battlefield. Red Police soldiers, 3 Grizzly tanks, 4 60mm light mortars. Following Wang Yao's order, under the darkness of night, the Red Police soldiers began to go to the target battlefield. Outside the city of Gator, a Red Police scout had long since investigated the deployment of the enemy troops outside the city. At 5 o'clock in the morning, when people are the most sleepy, the Red Police soldiers on the front line have already touched the nearest point of Gator City. On a hillside outside the city, the Red Police soldiers of 2 mortar squads were deploying artillery positions in the dark, with each mortar being more than 20 meters apart. The Red Police snipers also found a suitable high-altitude bunker, observed the situation in Gator City through night vision devices, and were ready to take a shot at any time. In the north of the city, in the forest 500 meters away from Gator's housing area, Rhodes held an AK-47 and looked nervously at Gator, who had become a hell. It is said to be a forest, but it is actually just a grove of acacia trees. The ground is dry and there is very little vegetation, and the bare stones are even a little stubborn. Road wears a pair of headsets in charge of contacting the militia, and around him, 200 militiamen of the Gator militia are holding guns, lying on the ground nervously, and staring at Gator, where they are home. Many people's properties were left inside, and even many people's families were separated in this military chaos, and they were probably still trapped in the city of Gator. This is one of the reasons why Rhodes was able to organize 200 militiamen. Around Rhodes, 3 Grizzly tanks and 5 pickup trucks were parked, and several Red police soldiers were constantly observing the situation in Gator City. If there were only 200 militiamen, Rhodes would never dare to provoke the warlord troops in Gator City. Got extra thoughts? Just when Rhodes was thinking so, a whistling broke the silent night. I saw a series of whistling sounds in the sky. Boom. 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 Several mortar shells exploded inside the city of Gator, with huge explosion sparks illuminating the center of the city. Rhodes was startled, and Wang Yao's voice came from the headset, "The target of the shelling is Arsinoe's house. If nothing else happens, Hebel should be in that house. If he can be beheaded, the plan will be it's more than half done, you wait 10 minutes before you attack." Arsinoe is the mayor of Gator, and he is also the big landowner of Gator. His house in the city is quite luxurious, and Rhodes has a picture. This guy is always a fair and open corruption, and he should hide it at home. A lot of money, Hebel is eyeing him, then he is probably dead. With the intruding artillery bombardment, the chaotic army in the city suddenly exploded into a pot of porridge. The Red police infantry rushed forward quickly, and under the cover of 3 Grizzly tanks, took the lead in attacking the housing area in the east of the city. A few more shells hit Gator's power supply transfer station, and the entire city lost power in an instant. In the darkness, the chaotic army in Gator City panicked, only relying on some burning houses to see the light of the fire. But it was soon attacked by Red police infantry. More than 200 Red police infantrymen began to enter the defense area on the edge of Gator in squads. They were well equipped and cooperated well, just like elite special forces. Attack. The Red police infantry with night vision goggles and various combat instruments fought steadily, and all the chaotic troops that appeared in front of them were precisely killed. Some rebels tried to rely on the housing area to resist, but they were attacked by grenades, and smoke bombs from the Red police infantry. As 3 Grizzly tanks entered the city, one shot destroyed an armored pickup truck of the rebel army. The morale of the rebel army in this area was greatly reduced, and they panicked completely. They fled in a hurry with the money they looted. You can attack. Remember, you can just feint attack. With the order to attack from the headset, Rhodes shouted at the militia, "Fight back to Gator. Attack." The militiamen let out a burst of cries, then picked up their rifles and rushed straight towards the city of Gator. The surrounding Red police infantrymen frowned as they watched these scattered militiamen without any tactics. The 3 Grizzly tanks that had been launched by their followers also began to attack the city. In the north of the city, 3 Grizzly tanks dominated, more than 30 Red police infantrymen cooperated to form an offensive arrow, and 5 captured armed pickups and 200 militiamen were around. Although there were only 200 militiamen, the formation of the militiamen seemed to be thousands. Rhodes looked at the militiamen who had already rushed over his head, and was extremely nervous. On the contrary, as the troops rushed into the city, they found that the chaotic army in the city had already fled towards the west of the city. A Nighthawk helicopter brought an infantry squad of Red police soldiers from the Red police base to the city of Gator. Looking down from a high altitude, the entire city of Gator was in chaos. Thousands of chaotic troops seemed to be headless, crashing around like flies. After being attacked from both sides, the rebel army in the city began to flee in embarrassment towards the west of the city where there was no gunshot. After discovering this situation, the pilot of the Nighthawk helicopter immediately reported the situation to the Red police base. These chaotic armies just collapsed. In the Red police base, Watching the scene of the Nighthawk helicopter coming back through, both Wang Yao and the Red Police staff were stunned. They had never seen such a rabble. Xue Baikan looked at the night video on the screen of a house collapsed by artillery shells, and speculated, if the information that the captured officer said is accurate, then the few shells we just shot should have killed the commander of this chaotic army. So now they are leaderless. You mean Hebel was killed by us in the house of the mayor of Yasuno? Wang Yao was dumbfounded. They have speculated about such a battle, but the probability of it happening is very low, only a few %. However, the combat effectiveness of the Suakyo warlords really shocked them. Therefore, Xue Baikan and other Red Police officers suggested to strike while the iron is hot. After the main Red Police force and the militia group drove most of the enemy out of the city, the 6 Grizzly tanks continued to pursue them, striving to turn the night attack into a battle of annihilation. Wang Yao immediately issued the latest battle instructions. Chapter 8, Control a City. Following the commander's order, the main Red Police infantrymen were no longer confined to the periphery of the city, but began to use 3 Grizzly tanks as assault arrows to form 3 attacking clusters and began to attack the city. In the sky, the low-altitude Nighthawk helicopter dropped an infantry squad's Red Police soldiers at the bombed-out mayor's house in the center of the city. Their task is to control the surrounding important buildings, such as banks, hospitals, government office buildings and other facilities. Compared with the orderly attack of the Red Police infantry, the militia in the north was more flustered. Especially after breaking into the city, some militiamen from the north of the city ran to their homes one after another, and then they were attacked by warlord soldiers on the way, causing some casualties. However, with the in-depth attack of the coordinated Red Police infantry, the warlord chaos in the city gradually compressed their living space, and more warlord chaos soldiers ran towards the west of the city. When it was gray and bright that day, the 2 attacking troops had already converged in the center of the city, and then continued to attack the west and south of the city. After the 2 armored platoons converged, they brought along an infantry squad and began to rush out of the city. Their task was to chase down the routed soldiers who had escaped from the city. The battle in Gator City was basically over after dawn. As Rhodes returned to the main city, he began to shout to the surrounding people, and more people gathered around him. The militia group was reorganized, and together with the Red Police infantry, they were responsible for the security of the city, and they began to shout that the soldiers of the rebel army who were still hiding in the city would surrender so that they could avoid death. In addition to the few stubborn soldiers, after the surrender shouted, most of the rebels hidden in the city put down their weapons and came out. This sudden battle made many warlord rebels think that they had encountered the army of a big country or the official elite troops of the country. After losing their leader and trapped in the city, these rebels completely lost their courage to resist. Rhodes excitedly commanded the people of Gator to start cleaning the battlefield, looking for survivors, carrying corpses, and other tasks. With the gradual restoration of order in the city of Gator, Rhodes' popularity among the commoners also reached a new height. The Red Police infantry patrols the city in squads to maintain law and order. Compared with the chaotic army and other armies, the Red Police infantry is strict in discipline and does not offend the civilians. Even the medical soldiers in the team treat the wounded soldiers. A field hospital was opened next to the hospital in the city to receive the injured and provide treatment to ordinary people. Although it is not known where these elite soldiers came from, such a well-disciplined force still brings a sense of security to the local people. In the rubble, Rhodes breathed a sigh of relief as he watched several corpses lifted out of Arsinoe's house that had been bombed down. Hebel was killed, and together with several of his officers, he was buried here at the beginning of the battle, so the entire chaotic army completely lost its command, like a fly without a head, allowing the attacking force to succeed. Completion of combat objectives. Wang Yao. When will your commander come over? Rhodes looked at Chen Suans, who was in charge of cleaning the front-line battlefield, and asked worriedly. Although the warlord rebels were expelled, Gator welcomed a mysterious army, not knowing whether it was good or bad for them. "Our commander, your excellency, will not come to Gator, you are still the mayor here," Chen Xian said sideways. Rode was surprised, "Don't you control the city?" Chen Suans shrugged, "Didn't we already control the city?" Rhodes reacted. Indeed, after the warlord rebels were driven away, the Red police force was stationed in Gator, which was equivalent to actual control of Gator. Even if he, the mayor of the town, had 200 militiamen in his hands, it was impossible. Disobey the commander. What you want is just this kind of control. Rode frowned, never seeing such an army. Chen Suans nodded, "We only need this result: local security, stability maintenance, and foreign military operations. Leave it to us, you only need to manage the people well. This is us, the Red Police Corps." Rhodes was deeply worried, but he also understood that although he was the nominal mayor of Gator, the army was in the hands of the adult. As long as he was willing, he could change someone to be the mayor at any time. Just like a warlord, he can ignore local civil affairs, but local civil affairs dare not violate his words and deeds. P.S. If you write too much about key politics, you will get 404, so I will stop here. This book mainly focuses on military warfare, and at most people's livelihood development, forget about key government. At the Red police base, Wang Yao saw that his troops had finally exceeded 400, and opened a bottle of Fat House Happy Water for himself as a reward. At the same time celebrate the victory of the front-line battle. "Your Excellency Commander, the chasing troops have returned, and the enemy fled into the mountains and joined the troops stationed at the gold mine." A staff officer came to Wang Yao to report on the pursuit. "Report, Commander, the battle report is out." Xue Baikan also brought the battle report. Wang Yao took the tablet and looked at it. In this battle, the Red Police Infantry suffered 3 casualties, the Militia Regiment suffered 36 casualties, and achieved the result of annihilating more than 1,600 enemy people. In addition, more than 300 people were captured in this war, and there were still rout soldiers hiding in the city. Surrender. Coupled with the scattered troops from the pursued troops, the number of chaotic troops who actually escaped was less than 1,000, and the garrison of the gold mine was only about 3,000. The main reason why Wang Yao didn't go to Gator was that there were still rebels in the city. If some radicals in these hidden rebels wanted to avenge their leader, wouldn't he be very dangerous? So staying in the car at the Red police base is over. With Red police infantry stationed in Gator, he is not afraid of local rebellion. In the future, when my own territory becomes larger and the military and government are separated, I can mine mines and raise the army myself, and I will be able to feed back the local area. If the local finances can be fully invested in the construction, it will be difficult not to take off and develop. If there are corrupt officials, kill them. Wang Yao is so simple and rude. However, there are only 80,000 funds left. We have to find a way to knock down the gold mine. Looking at the inaccessible funds on the system screen, Wang Yao drank coke depressedly. At this time, Xue Baikan suggested, "Your Excellency Commander, after we occupied Gator, we have seized a lot of gold and silver treasures looted by the enemy, as well as some pickup trucks and vehicles that were blown up, all of which can be recovered." "Huh? I forgot if you didn't tell me." Wang Yao immediately got up from his chair and sent a chrono mining vehicle to recover these things. In addition, add another infantry company and an artillery platoon to Gator, and organize Gator's Red police force into the 1st Battalion, which will be permanently stationed in Gator. And considering the mobility of the troops, Wang Yao ordered Chen Suans on the front line to collect a batch of pickup trucks as a temporary means of transportation, and when there are more chariot factories in the future, more armored transport vehicles will be produced. As Wang Yao's order was issued, Gator's Red police infantry grew more and more, and soon the number would exceed 500. Just when Wang Yao was about to go to sleep, the system prompted that the combat laboratory was successfully built, and advanced arms could be produced. Chapter 9, Synthetic Battle Battalion. After entering modern information warfare, due to changes in operational needs, smaller and more refined combat clusters have become the mainstream of the current armies of various countries. With the completion of the construction of the Air Force headquarters and the combat laboratory, most of the arms in the Red Police system have been unlocked. For example, various third-generation main battle tanks and fourth-generation fighter jets can be produced, and they are inexpensive. It's just that the funds in the system are not enough. Wang Yao has to save some money before laying a gold mine. However, it is possible to complete the preparation of a synthetic battle battalion. The Combined Combat Battalion is under the jurisdiction of 3 infantry companies, 1 tank company, 1 armored company, 1 artillery company, 1 support company, and 1 logistics support company, totaling 8 companies. Except for the infantry company, which is full of 160 people, all other support companies are it is a scale of 100 to 120 people, and a battalion has a total strength of 900 people. And the equipment has also undergone a major update. The tank company consists of 2 Grizzly tank platoons and 2 Challenger main battle tank platoons, a total of 6 Grizzly tanks and 6 Challenger main battle tanks. As for the Phantom tank, because it is a bit fantasy in this world, Wang Yao is ready to use it as an ace to deal with Eagle Sauce or several other rogue countries that may intervene in the civil war in Somalia at any time. However, the Challenger main battle tank has become the main battle tank of the current Red Police Corps, and together with the Grizzly tank, it forms the tank force of the Red Police Corps. As for the armored company, multi-purpose infantry vehicles are produced. Don't underestimate this wheeled armored vehicle. It is equipped with different Red Police units and can play different roles. For example, it can be used as an ordinary armored infantry vehicle, as an air defense infantry vehicle, as a medical support vehicle, and as a war maintenance vehicle. In addition to 2 armored infantry fighting vehicle platoons, the armored company also has an air defense infantry vehicle platoon, with a total of 9 multifunctional infantry fighting vehicles. The artillery company has a mortar platoon equipped with 8 81mm mortars with a maximum range of 5,600 meters, a 105-wheeled self-propelled howitzer platoon equipped with 3 105-wheeled self-propelled howitzers with a maximum range of 11 kilometers, an air defense platoon, 3 anti-aircraft armored vehicles. The support company also includes engineers, bridges, demining and many other arms. The logistics company includes ammunition, field hospitals, and liaison. Such a combined battle battalion has a total strength of 900 people, 6 Challenger main battle tanks, 6 Grizzly tanks, 36 multi-purpose infantry vehicles, 12 mortars of various calibers, and 3 105mm self-propelled howitzers. Air defense mainly relies on 3 anti-aircraft armored vehicles and the company's respective anti-aircraft missiles. It can be said that such a synthetic combat battalion covers all aspects of the battlefield, such as ground, infantry, anti-armor, and air defense. In addition, in order to deal with the drones of modern warfare, a batch of terrorist robots and explosion drones have also been produced. The former is a marine unit in the 2nd generation. The 4-legged are like walking on the ground in complex terrain. Once they are close to them, even the main battle tank is more fierce than the main battle tank. Explosion drones are Air Force reconnaissance units in the 3rd generation. They have a Dragonfly bionic mechanism. In addition to flying, their wings are also solar panels. The front end is equipped with an 800,000 pixel high-definition camera. Wang Yao equips each company with 3 blasting drones, and also equips the infantry and tank companies with 3 terror robots. Apart from fighting warships at sea, such a synthetic battle battalion on land is almost perfect. As the main construction units have been completed, Wang Yao has successively built the 2nd batch of barracks, combat vehicle factories, Air Force headquarters, etc., so that the production speed of infantry and equipment will be faster. In addition to increasing the garrison force of the Red Police base vehicle to 2 guard platoons, All other troops supported Gaydar's main force and completed the formation of a combined combat battalion in Gaydar. The security of the Red Police base was handed over to 2 guard platoons, as well as a dozen surrounding bunkers, Patriot missiles, Prism towers, and Phantom tanks deployed around. Because there are only radars and no spy satellites, the field of vision of the Red Police base vehicle is limited. After a certain range of the base, Wang Yao chose to use Phantom tanks to disguise as trees and deploy them in 8 directions of the base, so as to obtain an all-round view within 10 kilometers. Vision. However, after he arranged the production sequence and construction sequence, he always felt a little uneasy when he saw that there was only one Nighthawk helicopter in the empty Air Force command. Although the synthetic battalion not only has poisonous anti-aircraft missiles, but also anti-aircraft missile vehicles, and the Red Economy area also has Patriot missiles. This kind of prevention and control network is composed of a defense system based on the Patriot anti-aircraft missile system, but without its own air force, there is still no problem. Too relieved. So Wang Yao clicked on the Air Force production interface of the Red Alert system again, and found the Black Hawk fighter jet and the Intruder attack aircraft. The black fuselage and forward swept wings of the Black Hawk fighter are so handsome that they have no friends. This is a fighter that barely meets the 5th generation standard. Although it is slightly inferior to the F-22 Raptor fighter and the F-35 Lightning carrier-based aircraft, it is barely qualified in the 5th generation. Even the 3rd generation machine has no problems at all. First arrange the production of 3 Black Hawk fighter jets and 3 Nighthawk helicopters, and then remember to arrange the production of spy units after the 3rd barracks is built, and send all the spies to me to inquire about the intelligence. I want to get all the warlord forces in the country and the intelligence of the operators behind them. Wang Yao yawned and walked to the commander's lounge in the Red Police base car, ready to make up for a good night's sleep. Yes. Lord Commander. Xue Baikan and other Red Police officers stood at attention and saluted, watching Wang Yao leave. Chapter 10, Capture the Gold Mine. During the day when Wang Yao was sleeping, the construction of the 3rd barracks was also completed and began to produce spies according to the scheduled production sequence. The spy in the Red Alert system can be said to be a very buggy existence in reality, because he can turn into another person almost perfectly. Even if this person is right in front of you, you can't tell the difference. The only thing that can be distinguished at present is the military dog in the Red Police system, which can distinguish the identity of the enemy by its unique sense of smell. But in reality, this is difficult. After the spies were produced, they were immediately dispatched to various places. For example, some spies disguised themselves as prisoners, and then ran to the gold mines to look for the garrison troops as soldiers. Some spies began to go to other important cities in the country, such as the capital of the southern region of the country, the big coastal city of Bell Harbor, and the important city of Berbera along the coast of the Gulf of Aden in the north. In the afternoon, when Wang Yao woke up, some of the spies outside had already sent back information. Recently, a lot of big things have happened in Suakuo. For example, due to the outbreak of armed conflicts among several warlords in Somalia, various countries began to withdraw their troops from Somalia, including the fertilizer company where Wang Yao worked, which also began to withdraw from Bell Harbor on the east coast. His superiors directly lied about Wang Yao as a missing person. There was a famine in the southern region where the official country of Somalia is located. Due to the corruption and inaction of the officials of Somalia, the famine expanded. Large-scale civilian riots broke out in the officially controlled area of Somalia, which was originally stable. Western countries took the opportunity to manipulate behind the scenes and let Somalia, the southern part of the country, was in a panic. In the central area of the Sak country, as Hebal's remnants rolled back to the gold mine, the successor rebel leader Delhi reported the situation of Gaydar's encounter with unknown armed forces to the great warlord Sag and asked for support. The northern autonomous region of the country is at war with separatist guerrillas supported by the neighboring country of Serbia. In a word, the whole country is in chaos as always, and such chaos has lasted for 30 years. It is conceivable how impoverished the whole country is due to the influence of the war. Is SAG going to send troops? Wang Yao frowned as he looked at the information sent by the spy on the other side of the gold mine. Gator is actually a small northern town in the Guard province in the central region, and to the north of Gator is the Kuban province. That is to say, if SAG wants to send troops, the Red Police Corps in Gator will be caught in the dilemma of front and rear attack. Among Xue Baikan said, "It's still uncertain, our spy level is a bit low, and we are trying to find a way to enter the core of the gold mine garrison, but one thing is that Delhi, who took over as the gold mine garrison commander, seems to have changed after sending a telegram for help. Very cranky. There appears to be some disagreement within the SAG warlords. This garrison must be annihilated as soon as possible and occupy the gold mine." Wang Yao raised his head and looked at the Red Police system interface with less than 30,000 funds, and asked, "How is the formation of the troops?" Xue Baikan handed a tablet to Wang Yao and reported, "The 1st Synthetic Battle Battalion has been replenished, and you can enter the battle at any time." Through the information on the tablet, Wang Yao can see the specific situation of the Red Police force stationed on the front line of Gator. Now he has more than 1,000 troops. Except for the 100-strong garrison, all other troops in the base are in Gator, ready to attack the gold mines in the northern mountains at any time. And with the current production capacity of the Red Police base car, a synthetic battalion can be produced in 24 hours, but it requires more than 180,000 funds. First, send a reconnaissance team to cooperate with the enemy information returned by the spies to conduct reconnaissance. After nightfall, the 1st Synthetic Combat Battalion will enter the battlefield. Wang Yao ordered. Yes. Xue Baikan stood at attention and saluted, and with Wang Yao's order, he began to convene the staff to formulate a detailed night attack plan. Wang Yao is their commander. They only need to issue an order to attack where to attack. The specific attack plan will be perfected by their Red Police staff officers. The specific attack and battle will be completed by the Red Police soldiers for their commander. Wang Yao's order quickly reached the front. A parking lot in the northern suburbs of Gator has been requisitioned by the 1st Combined Combat Battalion of the Red Police Corps as a temporary camp. After receiving the order, Battalion Commander Chen Suans immediately dispatched a reconnaissance team to conduct reconnaissance first, and ordered all troops to assemble and prepare to go to the front line. Rhodes, who was doing the aftermath, saw these Red Police soldiers begin to assemble, and came to the barracks a little nervously to ask about the situation. "The war is about to start. You ordered some medical supplies to be prepared to receive the wounded at any time," Chen Suans said to Rhodes. "Although there are medics and field hospitals in the battalion, and even surgery can be performed, if a soldier is injured in a night attack, it is best to arrange for recuperation in the rear after a simple injury treatment on the front line. In addition to the Red Alert base, only Gator has this condition." "I understand, I will arrange it properly," Rhodes said with a serious expression. He also knew that if the warlords occupying the gold mines were not destroyed, sooner or later they would come to Gator to fight the autumn wind. Rhodes didn't want Gator to fall into chaos again. Night fell, and the time gradually came to night. In the Red Police base car, Wang Yao came to the headquarters immediately after having dinner, and looked at the situation map of the enemy and the enemy on the virtual screen together with the staff. The 1st Synthetic Battle Battalion has set off and is expected to arrive at the target battlefield in half an hour. Xue Baikan held a teaching stick and said on the map representing the blue marker of the enemy has added 2 more around the gold mine. There are 10 light and dark posts, and many mines are buried on the dirt road leading to the gold mine, so this attacking force will bypass the dirt road and attack from the east and west sides of the capital. Wang Yao nodded solemnly. The battle instructions were issued, and then it was up to the soldiers on the front line to play. At 10 o'clock in the evening, the battle officially started. The first to launch the attack was still the artillery support unit. 12 mortars and 3 105 mm wheeled self-propelled howitzers shelled the enemy station from 3,000 and 5,000 meters away. Dozens of shells fell into the enemy's garrison, instantly blowing the enemy's garrison into a sea of fire, in the darkness as terrifying as the entrance to hell. According to the information provided by the Red Police spy, the artillery shells fell directly on the enemy's barracks, ammunition storage warehouses, tanks and armored vehicles docking points and other important facilities. And as soon as the artillery was fired, it was half an hour of rapid artillery bombardment, and at least tens of thousands of shells were destroyed. At the same time that the artillery units launched the shelling, the infantry on the front line also began to pull out the enemy outposts on the periphery of the gold mine. One after another, rockets, grenades and light and heavy machine guns swayed bullets and artillery shells, directly razing the enemy's simple sentry. Originally, the enemy army was a group of warlords, and the hundreds of soldiers who ran back from Gadir last night were also tense. Order the artillery unit to stop the shelling, and the infantry company to enter the mine to clean up. After seeing the enemy in the mine turned into birds and beasts through the drone, Chen Suans decisively ordered the troops to carry out Plan B. The artillery unit stopped shelling, and the armed elite Red Police infantry rushed into the mine from two directions. In just half an hour, the originally planned shelling time, the battle was over without any suspense. Congratulations to Your Excellency Commander for occupying a gold mine. After the Red Police infantry on the front line occupied every area of the gold mine, the Red Police system popped up a prompt. Wang Yao was overjoyed that he finally had a source of funds, and quickly ordered the front line troops to stop the pursuit, start to clean the battlefield, build defenses and clear the landmines on the road, ready to send the chronospace mining vehicle to mine. Your Excellency Commander. Information from the spy on the 23RD. Just when Wang Yao was happy because he occupied the gold mine, the staff officer brought bad news. The army of the warlord Eriksson of Kuban province, 20 kilometers north of the gold mine, is approaching our army. The commander of this army is Eriksson's brother-in-law, Wagaden. Zhou. Wang Yao scolded, let's put it here and play with Lao Tzu to catch the cicada and the oriole, right?